Hello everyone and welcome to the Kickabout. England tighten their grip on World Cup qualification and we have a guest for tonight's show. I'm your host Chris.
I'm Fran.
And I'm Dan.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 52. And as I said, we have a guest with us this week. Introduce yourself, Will.
My name is Will. Thanks for having me here.
So Will is from the Rugby Blindside. Is it Blindside Rugby? Rugby Blindside.
Rugby Blindside.
So we will get into more detail later in the second half of the show, where we're going to have lots of chat about what the two sports can learn from each other. But first of all, as we always do, we're going to start with this. Damn the stat, man.
Yes, my stat this week is about.
Are you not getting your phone out this week?
No, mate. This is
wow.
I was about to be like,
You can tell we got a guest on the show who's trying to impress him.
I'll need it for the answers. So yeah, because the transfer window closed, and it's pretty much just seven teams made a profit this window. So can you tell me which 7 they were?
I can tell you one.
Yeah, I know. Joe ruined it a bit for me, but
well, I think that was fairly common knowledge anyway.
Yeah,
Is that just Premier League teams?
just Premier League. Yeah,
Okay.
7 out of the 20 made a profit.
All right. Cool. As always, we will get to that later. No Fantasy League update this week for obvious reasons, since there's been no extra Fantasy League points awarded because it's been International Week. So yeah, we will get into the England chat then. So both games kind of followed a similar pattern in that we were playing teams that, you know, we're expected to beat. We're expected to beat comfortably. It was a frustrating game, the Hungary game, wasn't it? Because I think, was it 1 shot on goal, 1 shot on target in the first half?
Yeah, it's pretty poor in the first half.
Yeah. And then we were obviously frustrated for large periods and stopping defending. And I guess it's worth noting that if you think back to what Hungary did in the Euros, you know, they drew with France and with Germany, and they took, you know, the 3-0 scoreline definitely flattered Portugal in the end. So maybe not such a surprise that it was hard work for England in the end.
Yeah, and then obviously the end result's not a bad result when you look at it. How they, to be fair, like against I can't remember, was it Germany or France? They nearly won it.
I think it was Germany last game, wasn't it? Because there was at one point where any one of the 4 teams were going through with all the different connotations.
So yeah, not a team to be overlooked, I don't think.
No, I mean, in all of those games we just mentioned, one thing that was evident was that Hungary did tend to kind of fade away as the game went on towards the end. So I guess maybe not, again, surprising that all of the goals came in the second half for England. One player who will want to forget this game in a hurry is Peter Galassi. I think that's how you pronounce it. The Hungarian goalkeeper. Is it fair to say he didn't have the best of nights?
Yeah, funny as well, because that football, I was literally saying to someone he was probably one of their best players.
So we have you to thank for that, don't we?
Well, he's meant to be like really up and coming. He played for like Hereford about 3 or 4 years ago, and is he at RB Leipzig?
Yeah,
now?
he's at Leipzig.
So he's had quite a rise, but not a good night.
So I mean, I guess if we talk about some of the individual performances, I mean, Sterling, it was a very similar performance, very similar lineup to the final of the Euros, with the exception of Grealish in for Saka, I believe. What did you make of some of the performances? Grealish stood out for me, Sterling as well.
Yeah, I think Grealish always plays well. Southgate just doesn't seem to like starting him for some reason.
He has just become this sort of prodigal son figure, isn't he? Like this Gascoigne figure that no matter when he comes on, where he is, he gets the loudest cheer every time.
Fans just seem to love him.
Yeah, and I think looking at our team, when the likes of Stones and Maguire, like we're quite good at set pieces. So having Grealish, who gets fouled every 10 seconds, is quite good for England.
Yeah. I should also note, I just remembered that I've got the fan on in the background. So if you can hear that, don't hate us. It is quite warm in this one tonight. So, and then a couple of the other players, Declan Rice had another good performance, capped it with a goal. Granted, it was not the best goalkeeping again. But unfortunately, we find ourselves yet again talking about some of the unsavoury and awful scenes in the crowd. I mean, it's sad to say that we shouldn't be too surprised about this anymore. And that's how bad it's become in my view, that everyone before the game, the talk was that, are Hungary going to behave themselves? This isn't the first time Hungary have been in trouble for this sort of thing either. I mean, it started at the start of the game with the booing of the taking of the knee, in which Hungary didn't partake. Where do we go from here? Like, because it's just not going away.
I don't really know how you stop it, to be honest.
I think it's just got to be stadium ban for a substantial amount of time.
Yeah,
not just one.
Because they're on about like maybe thinking about chucking teams out of like competitions, but I think if it was, say, England being racist, if there were a minority of racist England fans, it'd be harsh on the rest of us for England to be chucked out of competition.
Yeah, we'd all be praying that they don't, right?
Because of the minority of people. But yeah, I agree with Will. I think stadium bans is the only way to do it.
Because were they fined after the Euros?
In Hungary,
Yeah.
I believe they were, and I don't think it was anything more than that. And as it usually is the case, the fines are pretty minuscule and irrelevant. So yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, the scenes obviously at the first goal when Sterling scored, where he's absolutely just being pelted with
If in doubt,
bottles and everything.
drink what they throw at you.
Yeah, absolutely. Although there's a
Don't
theory.
always know what's in those.
Well,
drinks.
it's a bit like, well done, guys.
And also a bit of sus that Declan Rice in the Euros was saying that he's never had a beer before in his life.
Yeah.
And now he's just sipping beer thrown out from a random Hungary supporter.
He hopes it's beer.
I think Grealish had a go as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
So, I mean, if you look at the pictures, I mean, the pictures do paint 1,000 words with this. The sheer aggression in the faces of these Hungary fans. I can't comprehend of the mind of a fan who walks into a football match and behaves like that. Do you think, I mean, these people surely don't behave like this in day-to-day life, do they? In their jobs, at their home life?
You never know.
You don't know, do you?
I don't know. Some people it's just ingrained, isn't it? It's like second nature. It's not something you go out and choose to do. It's just what they just naturally do it, I think.
I mean, not being a fan of rugby, Will.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how often would you see I'm not suggesting the racism. How often would you see similarly aggressive fans throwing things, all that kind of stuff?
Well, it's just completely opposite in rugby. Like professional games, you have mixed crowds. So
Can you imagine doing that in a Merseyside derby?
Yeah.
Or West Ham
Imagine
Millwall?
that.
They'd be deafs.
You go to like an England, like especially international. You go to like an England-France match. You'll have England fans sit next to France fans, and they just get on.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, we're well past the point of no return. I know it's nothing new with football, the sort of the hatred that certain fans have for each other. But it's always puzzled me as to why that hatred is so strong. So
There's a lot of fans, well, maybe not a lot, but you get fans that go to the football that aren't even interested in the football. They go there for the fights and like your football factory type thing.
Yeah, and without wanting to be too stereotypical, those sort of Eastern European, Hungary, Ukraine, they are renowned for their ultras as they call them. Were you surprised that England didn't do more on the pitch? And I'm talking about things like going to the fourth official, because there's this sort of 3-step process, isn't there? Which I think Tyrone Mings did in one of the last England games. I can't remember who it was against, but it didn't, to me, seem like that had been done. So England just kind of got on with it.
Yeah.
Is it one of those things that England players just thought, you know what? What's it going to do?
Yeah,
Let's just get the 3 points, move on, and we'll let the authorities
Well, I think
deal with it.
the whole drink and the beer type thing was their sort of protest, wasn't it? So
Yeah. Well, I did hear a report from somewhere saying that they didn't actually hear the abuse until fairly late on. And it was
Right.
until England scored, so probably the second half, that's when the cups were thrown and everything like that. That's when they properly started to feel it, but they didn't really hear anything on the pitch. I think it was the ITV commentary, wasn't it, where they went down to someone on the sideline and they reported it before you could really see it kicking off around the stadium. But when you saw it kick off, yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, pretty vile. As I say, at the time of writing, I haven't seen anything personally about what they're doing other than that FIFA have said they're going to investigate. If we're talking about fines, do we think that that's enough? I don't think it is. Not, I mean, even really substantial ones. I mean, fans don't care; they're not paying it, are they?
No.
So I don't know. It's just becoming so common now. That it's sad that it's becoming so common. What about expulsion from tournaments? Do you think that would go as far enough to stop these fans, or do you think it's these fans literally don't care if the game goes on or not?
Well, it's happened before, isn't it? Liverpool, European finals, they had a 5-year ban for fan behaviour, so it's not like it hasn't happened before.
Do you feel like football's gone with the sort of the financial aspect, the money involved at the top level? Do you think that, I mean, let's say for example, England were banned, the outpour of lawyers and suing and God knows what else would kind of just take away from the point of what the ban is trying to do.
I think the problem is there's just a lot of empty gestures. Like, for example, the whole taking the knee. Like at first it was like a sort of symbol and I understood it, but now it just feels like a franchise.
I know what you mean. It just feels like what's the we said before, what's the next step?
Yeah.
It feels like that was a perfect moment to bring everyone together, do the taking the knee, show the solidarity, which I still don't really have a problem with them doing now.
No.
But I just feel like, well, if that's literally the only thing that you're doing, how do you think that that's going to translate
Yeah.
into differences off the pitch? It's just not. And that's why you're seeing more and more teams.
If anything, I think it's
stopping
brought
it
out.
It angers a lot.
Yeah, I think it shows how much racism there is because there's booing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going out of your way to boo it, then
Yeah, I'd love to talk to some people who boo it and find out why they boo it. Are they just inherently racist, or are they booing it because they're tired of it, happening and then nothing else being done? What's their reasoning behind it? I mean, if they are inherently racist, then they're doing a great job of exposing themselves.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
like, I had clients that I spoke to during the Euros, and they said they weren't going to watch England because of them taking the knee.
You've got to get a life, haven't you?
That's crazy. I mean, they literally do it for about 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Just avert your gaze if you're not interested in
Pause
it.
it.
Go and make a
Skip
tea.
Yeah, exactly. So right, let's move on to the second game, England v Andorra. An entirely different starting lineup against a team who very similarly set up to how Hungary did with a sort of compact defence. But we did get a debut for Patrick Bamford
On his birthday as well.
How did we think he did?
And it was Saka's birthday.
It was Saka's birthday. Yes, it was.
Did you see during Saka's interview at the end, all the fans were singing "Happy Birthday" to him?
Well, they
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, love
He's
that.
got such a lovable face.
So yeah, what do we think of Bamford's debut?
Yeah. Nothing spectacular.
No.
You tried.
I'll be honest. I'm still not convinced he's good enough to make that step. If I'm honest.
I would
Yeah.
agree with you. If England are looking to make the progression that they're making at the moment from semi-finals to final, if we're going to take that next
To
step,
win.
Bamford is not the one that's
No.
going to do it, is he?
I think it's right that he was given the opportunity.
It's nice for him but
Because
it's
of
not-
his goal scoring record for Leeds. If you're picking, we always whinge about not picking players on form. So therefore, Bamford, I think Southgate's done a very good job in picking him now rather than picking him for the squad for the Euros when all the talk was about him playing. For me, I just don't know if he's got enough quality.
I think the problem is for Leeds, they're an all-out attack team. Like everything, as soon as they get the ball, it's straight out the other end, and they're just constantly attacking. Like
That's not
obviously, all their
England.
games are high-scoring games, whereas England's very much the opposite. Southgate would rather win 1-0 than 5-4.
I mean, one or two of the people in the studio, I think Roy Keane and Ian Wright were in there, talked about whether he would feel aggrieved or not to be taken off just as Andorra were beginning to tire. They brought, I think, Kane, Grealish, and Mason Mount came on as well.
Got a feel for Andorra there, haven't you?
Yeah, Come on, we've done really well keeping the score down.
I think it was
they're
only
bringing
1-0 at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You thought,
I mean, those guys came on, did change the game, but I guess Bamford will be looking at thinking, well, we've played just over an hour, however long it was. We've worked hard, we've begun to tire them out, and we weren't given the chance to kind of reap the benefits from it. So do you think that's a valid excuse, or do you think that Southgate had to change it because he wasn't seeing the scoreline creeping up?
Well, he had the options to change it, didn't he? When you've got a bench of Harry Kane, Mason Mount, and that. But I think for his first, that's why he played him. It was a team against Andorra. We were always going to beat Andorra. So I think it was the perfect game to play him, and he can build on it from there. We weren't expecting him to go out and score a hat-trick in his first game.
No. I mean, I guess the wider talking point about this game is that, with respect to Andorra, this is not a game that's going to live long in the memory.
no.
It's a game that England are always expected to win, and it's one of those games where if you don't thump 4 or 5 past them, it's seen as a disappointing result.
I don't think I was the first person to Google where is Andorra when that game.
I think, if I heard rightly, that you could fit their entire population inside Wembley and still have 10,000 to spare.
Yeah.
So that sort of gives you, although their under-21 side did draw 3-3 with our under-21 side last year, so they're not devoid of complete quality.
Our under-21s are awful.
I know. One other player wanted to touch on was Jude Bellingham. He's been getting rave reviews out in the Bundesliga with Dortmund. Everybody, as Ian Wright was saying, was talking about him while he was at Birmingham, but nobody listened. And now we're beginning to take stock and listen. Do you see a way in which he can force himself into a regular side for England before the World Cup?
100%.
So, okay, so in which case, next question is, whose position does he take? Because if Southgate continues with the 2 in front, with Phillips and Rice, but I don't think Henderson gets in the side at the moment.
No.
If you look at the formation that Southgate plays, unless he plays an extra one in that middle, Henderson I don't think plays either. So I think he quite clearly seems to prefer Rice and Phillips.
He's just another option in that midfield three, though, isn't it? They're, like, he has some attributes that other players just don't have. He's my favourite type of player. A rangy box-to-box midfielder is like my ideal player. Like people like Basuma, Fabinho, Yaya Toure when they're just storming forward. I don't think falls into that category, unfortunately. I mean, he was when he
we
was
have to apologise to Jude Bellingham if he's listening. He's just been compared to Fred.
When Fred was at Shakhtar, he was more of a box-to-box player, but he still, doesn't have the leg.
Yeah, he is box-to-box, just the edge of your box to the centre circle. So, yeah, but I mean, when you look at some of the qualities you touched on there, you're absolutely right. He does have something different compared to Rice and Phillips.
He's basically what I wished RLC had.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Just a younger, better.
And I think we all thought that Ruben Loftus-Cheek would become that player as well, but he just sort of has stagnated, isn't he?
He's suffered with injuries and he's been passed around a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I really love about Bellingham is the...
It's like a baby.
Anyone else want to hold him? One thing I really like about Bellingham is the sort of the tenacity. He's got that almost Gattuso quality about him that he just flies into tackles but gets it right every time. He's not dangerous, but you see a couple of those challenges flying and you can see the midfielders going, no, that's yours, mate. I'm not feeling that. That's all yours. And
he's really good for his feet for such a tall lad as well.
And bearing in mind his age, I was very...
He's still only 17?
I believe he is. Really? I think he only turned 17 during the Euros, didn't he?
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
His brother, Fran's dad, is a Birmingham fan, and he was telling me that his brother is now starting to get into Birmingham's first team as well, and he's 15.
Yeah, must be something in the water where they live. I think that there is a genuine chance that Bellingham may end up being in the Premier League in the not too distant future anyway. We touched on Fred there, but if you're looking for a replacement...
90 million or something like that.
Well, it'll take you 3 seasons to do it as well. But no, I really like Bellingham. I think that he's got all the qualities, and when he was making a couple of runs down the line and he didn't get the ball, you see his visible anger and disappointment at not being passed, and that's for somebody of that age to walk into a team full of very seasoned professionals and experienced players. That takes some bollocks to be like that.
He doesn't look out of place either. If he started the game against, say, Poland, I don't think anyone would bat an eyelid.
No, I totally agree. So just to round off to the England chat, looking ahead to the World Cup next year, there's still many games to go. We've still got a game this week against Poland as well. What do you think that we have learnt since the Euro? I know there's only been a few games, but have we learned anything more? What do England need to improve on to maybe take that next step into the World Cup next year? Or is it too early to tell for the moment?
Practice penalties?
If Harry Kane can take all 5, we're fine.
These 2 games were like, I don't know, it's like an emotion. I was still on that emotional hangover. So the first game was like the hair of the dog, and I was just like, I don't really want to watch this because I just don't. I'm not over the Euros yet.
I feel like it was a nice moment though for Saka to score, and it be at Wembley, and it was his birthday, and it was the end where he missed the penalty.
It did have a pleasing circularity to it.
It was quite cute.
But if you look back over the Euros, England didn't do much wrong. We lost on penalties in the final.
Yeah.
There's not much apart from practicing penalties again if you're going to do it, but you can't replicate that in a game.
And we played against a team that still hasn't lost.
Exactly.
In was it 30 odd games now? Their win streak or their not losing streak is.
Yeah, to lose on a coin toss is here or there.
But also with that second one, I'm kind of glad that narrative is now done, because I feel like the media were just milking that for all it's worth. But now that he's scored, and as you say, it was his birthday, and at the end, I'm hoping we can just put that story to bed now, forget about it, and just let Saka get on with his career.
If anything, I don't think it's sort of England as a team. I think it's maybe Southgate, like the experience, that will be good for England.
You anti-Southgate?
No, I don't mind Southgate.
You were.
I was. Yeah, I won't deny that. I find him very boring, and the football he plays very boring. But I mean, he took us to the final, and we never really looked in too much trouble, other than when we went 1-0 down to Denmark.
And the goal we conceded against Italy, I mean, that was very avoidable.
Yeah.
I know they had a couple of better chances, but the scrappy goal that they scored, if we stop that from happening, then we're having a very different conversation right now.
I think my only maybe criticism is he reminds me a bit of Ollie with his substitutions. He sometimes either doesn't make them or he leaves them till the last minute.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see, the growth of him, because he has definitely grown as a manager. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, he's taken us to a semi-final, of a World Cup and a final of the Euros. which is much more than any England manager has done in recent memory, with probably, you would argue, better squads on paper.
Yeah.
You think back to the golden generation of Sven and Fabio Capello and stuff, and how badly they failed.
Like 2004, how did we not do anything with that team?
It's incredible. So I think we have to work. I think you're right. I think that's going to be the biggest thing: is how does he change his approach to games? Does he play a little bit more open? Or does he stick to the tried and tested formula?
I don't think he will. I think he'll stay with what he knows. And you can't blame him. Like I say, he got us to the final. And I was listening to a thing during the Euros, and they were saying that people were criticising, saying he plays sort of boring football and that. But if you look back at all the countries that have won it, they all have great defences and they hardly
Italy,
conceded any
Portugal,
goals. Yeah,
the last two, Greece,
Yeah. So.
Well, one thing I do like is for that Qatar World Cup, I think we're pretty much going to have exactly the same squad as the Euros.
That's a big thing as well. I mean, obviously a little bit fortunate that it's coming around so quickly.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, there isn't a single player in that team that's going to be past it.
Henderson, maybe. But then if you're talking about Jude Bellingham coming through, then it's an upgrade.
I would argue that his...
Henderson just does the quizzes anyway.
He's like social
and the karaoke nights. I mean, I would argue that Henderson is going to, unless there's injuries, I don't think he's working his way back in the team anyway.
No.
And the way, as you say, the way Bellingham is playing, Henderson's future at Liverpool is very much up in the air anyway. Yeah. So,
and Harvey Elliott starting at Liverpool this season, I can see him being in the squad for Qatar.
Yeah,
if he continues how he has done.
Yeah, with him, it'll be. Is there enough games where he can get some time with England?
Do you think that's what it'll be like for Jesse Lingard?
Well, I mean, the bloke's played more minutes for England than he has for Man United this season by a long way.
But then he does. But then he.
Well, if his chances were limited enough before, we've now signed Cristiano Ronaldo. So
it's amazing, isn't it, that Jesse Lingard, that game for England was almost a shop win. He's used England as a shop window opportunity.
He did Ronaldo celebration as well.
That was
he looked good in that game. And he had what was that the chip that was offside. That was a naughty little finish.
He could have easily had 3 or 4 in that game. So part of me still hopes that West Ham go for him at some point, maybe in January or.
I feel like he has hamstrung himself a bit with the World Cup not going to West Ham, because going to West Ham he would have played the whole season.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. That unless a deal is done in January, similar to how it was last year.
But even then, I mean, you look at the form he was in from January up until the Euros, and he still didn't get picked.
No, that's true.
Well, he did for the weird friendly, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Where he just played all the players that weren't going.
Unless he has luck and someone gets injured.
Southgate, we know, does like to pick players that he trusts, and he quite clearly does trust Jesse Lingard. Yeah. Because if you were picking them on form, you wouldn't have played Lingard, because it's just not played at all, unless you're counting pre-season friendlies. So we'll obviously we'll see how that all pans out. Right, transfer rumour mill time, Mr. Daniel. So we didn't do an extra episode.
Well, not rumours anymore.
They're not rumours, done deals.
Yeah.
We didn't do an extra episode. We didn't feel like there was enough. We didn't have enough time to do one.
Yeah.
But there were still a number of transfers done on deadline day, and it was, as we said before, you'd never know there was a pandemic on with the amount of money flying around.
Yeah. I'll just sort of go through all the ins and outs of each team over the entire transfer window, and we can just pick a few out. I won't bother naming like the youth players that have gone on loan to League 2 teams. Starting with Arsenal, they obviously signed Tavares, Lokonga, Ben White, Odegaard and Aaron Ramsdale, and on deadline day, Tomiyasu.
It's strange, isn't it? Because there's been this narrative about Arsenal about how much money they've spent, and it's not the complete picture, and everyone likes to pick out that particular stat, but if you look at the wages they're probably paying these players compared to United, who signed these players for less money, but you look at the wage bill increase and it tells its own story. But the concerning thing for Arsenal right now, and we've been bashing the hell out of them recently, is that it just does not seem to have solved a thing. If anything, it's made them worse. Yeah. So Arteta has got an unbelievable job, not only to save his own job, but to sort this team out and get them playing and get these players into. I mean, Odegaard shouldn't be a problem because he was there last year.
Yeah. I think. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think Arteta's the problem.
Yeah.
I just don't know much about football, but I feel like I know enough tactically. Basically, I played Football Manager.
That makes everyone.
All I just see them doing is just passing it down the wing, back into the centre, back to the other, and they're just doing this horseshoe shape, round and round and round. And when they do get the ball into the box, they're crossing it into like 2 or 3 defenders to like Martinelli. And like, what is he going to do with the cross from, I don't know, from a right wing back or anything like that? They're just not creating chances to anything that would create a goal.
I've been saying to Chris, I think where he's been at City, he's trying to play the Man City way, but he hasn't got the Man City players.
Yeah, and you look at some of the goals they conceded this season, they have come from sloppy in possession, the things, as you rightly say, that Arteta will have absolutely instilled in the players that they're either not good enough to do, or, you know, where it's confidence, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Arteta's, I think his days are numbered. I mean, these next 2 games, I think it's Norwich and Burnley.
Yeah.
I mean,
Still don't win them.
It's incredible to talk in early September about a manager potentially losing his job in that space of time, but that's where we stand on it right now, I think.
Go on, mate.
No, I was just going to say, I feel sorry for Ben White. I'm a secret Brighton fan. Not so secret anymore, but yeah, and I just think he's going to get a lot of the criticism just because he was their big money move.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's all his fault. I
mean, that team was failing before he turned up.
Yeah, and he's not the defender that they need. One, he plays in the back 3, and he had Dunk and Webster next to him, who are both incredibly good and big defenders.
And very organised as well.
If you've got Pablo Mari and Rob Holding and Callum Chambers, who is in between a right back and a centre back, and neither of them. So I just feel sorry for him that the fans are looking at him thinking, oh, we signed a £50 million player. He's going to fix our defence.
Yeah, they're looking at him in the same way that Liverpool fans now look at Van Dijk. We want you to be our saviour. Yeah, not good. We'll see in the next few weeks how that's all going to pan out.
And for Arsenal, so many outgoings, so I won't name absolutely all of them, but sort of the main few are Hector Bellerin's gone out on loan, Joe Willock they obviously sold.
Bellerin actually went out on loan,
Yeah, he's gone to Real Betis.
Okay.
And obviously they managed to offload Willian.
Yes, although that was
contract.
Yeah.
So Willian was obviously so desperate again. Did you see Didier Drogba's tweet, by the way?
No.
So he said another job well done, and he tagged in Willian, Petr Cech, David Luiz,
Arsenal.
all the players that gone from Chelsea to Arsenal, as if like they were undercover spies. But yeah, he tore up his contract, did away with any kind of
he did do
fee that they would give him.
Yeah, he did an Instagram post saying that he'd been sort of criticised for just going there to earn the money and stuff like that, and that's why he ripped up the contract to sort of say, I'm not here for the money, I wanted to make a difference.
Well, if ever there needs to be an example of how footballers don't need these big payoffs, you've just had it right there.
Yeah.
Is he retiring?
No, he's gone to the Corinthians.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a we talked about how they got a couple of ageing players on big money, so getting rid of Willian is a big thing for them. Now they've got to sort out Lacazette and Aubameyang now.
Yeah. Moving on to Villa, they obviously had quite a busy transfer window. They managed to bring in Bailey, Buendia, Ashley Young on a free, Danny Ings, and Twanzebe.
Yeah, I think they've had a very, very good transfer window, arguably one of the best in the league, I think. Any team losing a player like Jack Grealish is going to, struggle to fill the that sort of void that he leaves. But I think in the players they brought in, we've not seen it yet. We've seen glimpses of it, but we've not seen it come to fruition yet. But I think that over the course of the season, I think Villa are going to have another good season this year.
Yeah, and outgoings, quite a few. Obviously, the main one was Jack Grealish.
Yeah, well,
I think what Villa did well was they spent the Grealish money before they had it.
They knew he was going. They must have got wind that a City bid was coming. I mean, to be honest, the Villa owners are absolutely loaded. So even if they spent that money and didn't sell Grealish, it wouldn't have mattered to them anyway.
Brentford signed Onyeka and Aya from Celtic.
Yeah.
On Football Manager, he's a good player.
Here we go.
He's a very good player.
And I don't know any of the outgoings. I can't say many people, unless they're big Brentford fans, would know them either. They were just contract expiries, so I doubt they were there.
Yeah, I mean, still unbeaten in the Premier League at the moment, Brentford.
Yeah.
Started solidly, and, these new clubs that come up from the Championship often find out that it's their defences that often get them relegated, not necessarily their strike force. So the fact that Brentford are looking fairly not comfortable, but fairly solid at the back so far is a really good sign if they want to survive this year.
I like their manager. I was just look at him. He just looks like a cool guy. Got his head screwed on.
Yeah.
Is it Frank?
Thomas Frank,
Moving on to Brighton, a few players that they brought in. Actually, I didn't realise how many players they brought in. Sarmiento from Benfica, Mwepu from Red Bull Salzburg, Sherpin from Ajax, Mitoma, Cadra from Blackburn, Cucurella from Getafe, and Seema from Slavia Prague.
They did get Seema in the end of the day.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I think they loaned him
He went
straight out, though,
straight
didn't
out
they?
to Stoke.
Just- yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Because he, again, yet another Czech production line that was meant to be coming to West Ham at one point. So, but the very fact that they've loaned him straight out to Stoke suggests that they don't think he's ready yet.
No, and they, from what I've read from Brighton sources, they are really scared of pissing off Mopé. They he's seen as their centre forward and their main guy at the moment, and because they were linked with this £40 million player Darwin Núñez from Benfica, which just never got across the line. But they just don't want to piss him off basically. So any striker that comes in is now just back up. And Brighton have always struggled for goals when they've been in the Premier League, and I think Potter has just said to the players like Trossard and McAllister and those around him, you guys need to up your game and start getting 5 to 10 goals. It's not all on Mopé up front getting 15, 20 goals. So.
Well, there were rumours about Mopé going to Everton, I think it was.
And Basuma's still linked with Liverpool for a move in January.
I think they'll struggle to hold on to him for much longer.
He's a brilliant player.
He is a great player. I'd love him at United, to be fair.
What represent as a not so secret Brighton fan anymore?
Yeah.
What represents a good season this year? Because we've spoken very highly on the show about Graham Potter and the work that he's done, and with let's be honest, an average Premier League squad.
Yeah.
A couple of good additions and the way they play. Can Brighton start being a bit more ambitious and climb up that league?
I don't think too ambitious. I think mid-table because they've been in the Premier League. This is their 5th season. They've never finished above 16th.
Wow.
They've never got more than 41 points. So people look at them and think, oh, they play great football, but they're always still down the bottom by the end of the year. They'll have these runs where they go on and win a few games, but Graham Potter, I think he's won 2 games already. He hadn't won 2 games until January last season.
Wow.
So, I mean, you've got to take everything with a pinch of salt, basically, but mid-table, comfortable, and then build on it from there, I think.
It's always felt like Brighton just needed a striker.
Yeah.
That was all they were missing. So if Mopé can start firing properly...
Well, he went off injured in one of the earlier games with a dislocated shoulder.
Oh.
And then he did play the next game, but as someone who has dislocated their shoulder multiple times, it's just going to be a recurring injury.
Me and you can have a look.
Don't get him started.
Moving on to Burnley, they signed Maxwell Cornet, the Umbro fan, Wayne Hennessy, and Connor Roberts from Swansea. Yeah,
not exactly signings that are going to set the world alight. I'll be honest, I don't know much about the Umbro fan, but a little bit like Brighton, we were saying about what represents a good season for them. I think all of these clubs that have been hovering around the bottom, I guess their next step is to just not be looking over their shoulder, to have a comfortable season where they look up rather than behind them.
Yeah, I think with Burnley, they're never really too fussed about pushing towards Europe and that. They're just happy to be in that mid-table place. Yeah.
Just short. I mean, there's been a few over the years rumours about Sean Dyche and could he manage at a slightly better team. Are Burnley in trouble of losing him? Because regardless of whether Sean Dyche can do it somewhere else, he clearly is very key to them staying in the league. So if they were to lose him, regardless of what happens to Sean Dyche, they may struggle if they lose him.
I really couldn't imagine Sean Dyche without Burnley and Burnley without Sean Dyche.
I know what you mean.
Match made in
there. Yeah. In terms of outgoings for them, it was mainly just loans. Chelsea, they obviously signed Lukaku, Saul Niguez, and they signed Bettinelli on a free from Fulham.
Okay. Saul Niguez was an interesting one. Because the position that he's going to come into, that central midfield role, there are still people at the club like Ross Barkley, Loftus-Cheek, who clearly, Ross Barkley hasn't even got a squad number this season.
Is he not?
Completely and utterly just, he had such a good half season with Villa last year. You thought that somebody might have taken a punt on him on a loan, but nobody did.
I think it's just injuries for him, though, isn't it? He can't stay fit. Same with RLC, though.
Yeah.
What used to they?
It's like a Jack Wilshere. It's like this sort of conveyor belt of English talent. They just can't stay fit. He's been getting. Apparently, his son's been getting bullied for that at school.
I saw that.
So, has he found a club now?
No, I think he's been.
He's been training with someone, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope he does find a club because it's quite because apparently he's actually said he's not been injured since 2019. Since like January 2019. It's just that nobody wants to give him a chance. Maybe they're so scared he's going to get injured they don't play him.
I think it's a shame when players with like such massive potential do just get ruined by injuries.
Yeah, not good.
Like Phil Jones. Outgoings for Chelsea, they obviously loaned out about 30 youth players.
As they do.
But they let go of Tamori, Tammy Abraham, and
Who was absolutely tearing the place up in Italy right now.
And Kurt Zuma, and they all went for about 30 million each.
I've got a mate who's a Chelsea fan, and he was really, really pissed off that Tamori went.
Tamori?
Yeah.
I was quite surprised actually because he looked quite good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they pinned a lot of their hopes on getting what's his name, Kunde from Sevilla, and that didn't happen. And they've sold Zuma to us for 30 million, which I know is not pleased a lot of Chelsea fans. Not necessarily because they've sold him, although some of them do think that it's should you sell him to another Premier League club. But it's the fact that they've sold both Tamori and Zuma without bringing anybody else in. So you're left with Rudiger Christensen and Thiago Silva.
Chabot's been playing a lot, isn't he?
Is he a centre-back though? Is he a full-back?
He played defensive mid when he was out on loan last year, but he started in the back three this time around.
So, I mean, I'm not one to be questioning Tuchel, given his form for Chelsea so far. He must know what he's doing.
Yeah. Moving on to Palace, they obviously signed Odsonne Edouard from Celtic on deadline day.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted for Brighton.
Yeah, he was heavy in England.
Yeah,
Brighton.
he was.
For 15 million as well.
Yeah, it's an absolute steal. He scored consistently 20 to 30 goals for 4 years. I know it's in Scotland, but even if he does 10 to 20 down for Brighton or a team like Palace, it could keep them up.
That's huge, absolutely.
As well as Conor Gallagher and Will Hughes from Watford. And obviously Conor Gallagher's already started pretty strong.
Yeah, they did also sign. So we'll get to the viewer comments in a minute about who's had the best and worst transfer windows. Pete mentioned there was a player from Reading.
Yeah, they have Michael Olise.
That's the one. Yeah. So Pete speaks. Our resident football league expert. He rates him very highly and thinks that he could be definitely one to watch for Palace this season. So, having got their first goals and first points against West Ham, be interested to see what Vieira can do with them now.
In terms of outgoings, that we obviously spoken about how many players they.
We'll be here a while talking about all the ones that have gone.
So I won't list them all again. Moving on to Everton, they signed one of Palace's let go players and Josh Townsend. Begovic, another free. Damari Gray for 1.6 million. Lonergan from West Brom on a free, and Benitez's son, Salomon Rondon.
Did you hear that? It was when Rafa was at Newcastle, and that Newcastle fan created a song about Rondon.
No.
Oh, it's to George Ezra. It's like Rafa bought him Rondon, did it? And it's honestly the best fan song I've ever heard. Better than that Liverpool. What was the Mo Salah one?
That one was just horrendous.
Awful. But this one, I literally, as soon as he started singing it, it just got stuck in my head for about 6 hours. And when he signed him this time round, I was like, the first thing I was, Rafa bought him Rondon.
Yeah, it's typical Rafa Benitez.
It's like Harry Redknapp with Crancher.
Yeah, sort of like bargain bin type deals. But I mean, Damari Gray's had a pretty good start, which surprised me. Begovic is obviously only ever going to be a backup keeper to Pickford. And they started pretty well.
I think they're just scaling back, aren't they? Think of how much money they've spent over the past 2 or 3 seasons.
And it's not worked for them, has it?
Yeah. So, and I know you'll get to the outgoings in a minute, but one outgoing they didn't get rid of was James Rodriguez. There's a lot of talk about whether or not that kind of saga, because he clearly doesn't want to be there, whether that's going to sort of be a cloud hanging over the club, whether that's going to affect the dressing room or anything.
Where did they end up in the league last year?
10th, I think.
Yeah. They did drop. Because they started really strongly.
Well, as soon as Calvert-Lewin picked up the odd injury and his goals dried up, Everton started to really tail off.
Outgoings, there was a lot. They let a lot of players go. Theo Walcott obviously went. Josh King was there for only 6 months.
What a successful period that was.
It was a strange one.
He's such a good little player.
But he's at Watford now, right?
Yeah, he's at Watford, yeah. Balassi was a blast from the past.
What a player he was a few years ago.
Bernard, little Brazilian.
Oh, I quite liked him.
Yeah, he's gone to Shakhtar.
Okay.
That's where he came from, I think, wasn't it? I'm not sure.
I think, maybe. Yeah, it might be right.
I think it was.
And Moise Kean sort of went on loan to PSG, did really well, and now he's gone to Juventus on loan.
Yeah, and the one game he has played this season, he was sent off. It's never really worked out for him. It's weird because he came in with a lot of promise. For whatever reason, never settled on Merseyside, couldn't cut it.
I think he reminds me a bit of Balotelli. I think he's got like, a really bad attitude.
And Juventus have re-signed him to replace Ronaldo, so be interesting to see. I mean, how do you replace Ronaldo? I don't know, but
was that where he was before when he was scoring?
Yeah, I don't know. And then they sold him to Everton.
Was that 2 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, and he's gone on a 2-year loan with an obligation to buy. So.
Yeah.
Interesting. Moving on to Leeds, they spent 25 million on Dan James, which I was really happy about.
All just to free up that number 7 shirt for Ronaldo.
Wasting money.
They bought Jack Harrison finally from City. They'd obviously
After
been on
7 years of loaning him.
Yeah, I thought that was a massive spider. Junior Firpo, 13 million from Barcelona.
Yeah, well, the Barcelona yard sale that was.
Yeah. Lewis Bate from Chelsea. Can't say I recognise that name.
No.
And Christopher Claassen from Vålerenga.
No, I don't know that name either.
Outgoings, again, there were so many. The only sort of name I really recognise is Helder Costa, went to Valencia.
Yeah, didn't what's his name? Hernandez. Didn't he leave as well?
Pablo
Hernandez, yeah.
His contract just expired.
He was really good for them in the Championship, but I think he basically didn't play last year 3 years ago.
He's 36.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
quite old. Yeah, he's been around for a while.
And they loaned out Kiko Casilla, the old Real Madrid goalkeeper.
Yeah, wasn't he the one that was accused of racism or something?
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
I'm sure
he's banned for like 7 games. or
Yeah, something like that.
Leicester brought in Patson Daka from RB Salzburg.
I think potentially that when he starts playing, if he starts playing, that could be a good signing.
I could see him being like a cup striker to start with.
I wonder how Iheanacho thinks, what he thinks though. Bearing in mind the end of the season he had last season, you know, to see them sign a fairly marquee central forward.
Youngster as well, he's like 19, 20. So.
I think Ian actually sees himself more as a 10 now, though, like behind the main striker. Because that's where he was playing when Maddison was injured.
Yeah.
And that's when he was scoring all of his goals. He just sort of drop in a little bit or run beyond the striker and then get in there. But yeah, he's probably a bit pissed off. I do think Leicester have probably had the best window. Like probably the most sensible window, because, I mean, you can list off the others now, but I think it's Samari as well.
Samari, yeah.
And
Brian Bertrand, Vestergaard, and Lookman.
And but they're just players that they can bed in slowly. They're not. There's no pressure for Daxon or Samari to just hit the ground running and go for it. I just think it's just clever Leicester, isn't it?
Yeah, Leicester as a club have been like that for a number of years. Their transfer dealings.
Yeah, we always speak about how good their recruitment is.
Yeah, and they've bought a number of those players who've already got Premier League experience. They've identified very quickly. I mean, we touched on Man United and West Ham and how slow some of their transfer dealings are. And you look at what happened to Fofana when he broke his leg.
Yeah.
Within a week, they'd signed Vestergaard.
Yeah. 15 million as well, I think, for a Premier League sort of centre-back. That's not bad.
No, that's very
He must
good.
have had 1 year left on his contract. I can't imagine Southampton would have let him go for 15 million.
Yeah, I can only imagine that was a bit like Danny Ings.
Yeah. Outgoings, Dennis Praet. I don't know how you pronounce his name. Is it Praet?
Praet, yeah, something like that.
Went out on loan. Wes Morgan retired.
Big Wes.
Yeah. They let go of Kristen Fuchs.
Yeah.
And that is about it. All the rest look like the youth players gone out on loan.
A couple of big names. I mean, Wes Morgan and Christian Fuchs, part of their Premier League winning team. The success they've enjoyed at Leicester, I guess, will be beyond their wildest dreams.
Yeah.
A few years ago. So.
Liverpool been quite busy. They brought in Kanate.
I genuinely, when you said that, I was like, have they brought in others that I've not thought of? It's. I don't necessarily think you can say, a little bit like City, even though they've only brought in one player for fairly big money, you can't say they've had a bad window because they frankly don't need to strengthen as much. Liverpool more so than City, because I do think they should have replaced Wijnaldum.
Yeah.
But they have had a number of players come back from injury, and I know it's a age-old saying.
I hate it.
I know that it's like a new
hate
signing, but when they have been out for so long, when they come back in, it does solve a lot of the problems that they thought they had. But I do think that another midfielder.
Like Will said, that Harvey Elliott coming good, I think, will be like a new signing for them.
Yeah, and they've still got Henderson in there. They've still got Oxlade-Chamberlain that Klopp seems to keep on and keep playing when he's around. They've got Thiago, so they're not short of Fabinho, Keita, so they're not short of quality.
No.
I thought Keita was going. Wasn't he rumoured to be?
Yeah, I think it was rumoured.
But that midfield three of like Fabinho, Henderson, and Thiago, they're quite old. Like you'd think that they'd look to replace at least one of those players, like bring someone in and like Leicester just sort of bed them in slowly and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's going to come to a head.
Yeah.
At some point, it's going to come to a head.
Because they had injury problems not just in defence but in midfield last year. They were playing players all over the place. They didn't have Henderson, Milner, all of their old guard for ages.
I think that's the problem Barcelona had. Their squad just got so old and they had to replace everyone at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, maybe we'll see Klopp do a Fergie, sort of like work out when the right time to walk away is just as they're all sort of over the hill.
Salah and Mane, I think, are in their late 20s.
Yeah. Firmino's up there as well.
Yeah.
Harvey Elliott will be the most experienced player there in a few years' time.
Outgoings, obviously, you said Wijnaldum's gone. They sold Harry Wilson to Fulham for 12 million.
Yeah.
Shaqiri went to Lyon.
Yeah, good move for Shaqiri, I think.
Yeah. And again, a lot of youth players went out on loan. Like Ben Woodburn, Reece Williams, Shea Ojo.
Several of those you just mentioned all had starring roles last year because of the injury crisis.
Yeah. Moving on to City, they brought in Jack Grealish and Scott Carson. So I think, like you said, I think Scott Carson must have been on loan last season because he was there last season. Yeah,
Grealish is a funny one because, again, like we just mentioned, Grealish plays in a position that they did not need to strengthen. It felt like it was a transfer they made because they didn't want anybody else to have him. Yeah. And I'm going to keep saying it. I know Fran disagrees with me, but I'm going to keep saying it. They're going to suffer at some point this season. The question about striker is going to come up again. They're going to have a couple of games where they all of a sudden don't fire, and that lack of focal point, the lack of that number 9 is going to catch them out at some point. Whether it catches them out enough to they don't win the league or makes the difference, I don't know. But sooner or later they're going to have to address that.
Yeah, I think the Grealish signing was to bring in more fans as well. Like, not in a take the piss way, but obviously City are still a sort of new club in terms of having fans, because obviously everyone takes the piss out of them not being able to fill their stadium and stuff like that.
It was flying around yesterday that they had more fans there at Soccer Aid than they did at a Premier League game.
But when you sign like the likes of Harry Kane, Jack Grealish, it brings in Grealish fans, Harry Kane fans. Same with like Cristiano Ronaldo, like there'll be fans that follow him whether he goes Real Madrid, Juventus, City.
Fan of the player.
There'll be Ronaldo fans,
it'd be interesting to see how they do. I think obviously they're still going to be strong. They're still going to be up there. Of course they are. But as I say, I've just got this feeling that at some point, Fran would no doubt tell me, go and get that humble pie out of the fridge because you're going to need it. But yeah,
I'll say that.
Outgoings, obviously Aguero. I'd say he went to Barcelona, but he's not technically a Barcelona player.
He
yet,
is.
He
has registered. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I think it was Busquets had to take the pay cut this time to let him play. Did you see what he said today? I think it was, or yesterday.
No.
So he's obviously injured, as we know, until like October, November time. And apparently he gave an interview to a Twitch streamer and basically said that it's tough here because at Man City I used to come in, hour and a half, 2 hours before training to work on stuff. It's very different here at Barcelona because he thought he would, get ahead of the game, turn up an hour early for training, and the lights weren't even on. So it's a very different attitude towards that Aguero wanted to come in early to get some extra work in to try and help his recovery, and literally no one was there. The lights were turned off. So
also,
maybe they're saving on electricity bills.
Save anyway.
Also joining him at Barcelona was Eric Garcia, that youngster that they were sort of linked with all season.
He'd been wanting to go there for a number of years, hadn't he?
Yeah, and then obviously Jack Harrison to Leeds, a lot of youth players out on loan, and Patrick Roberts. Don't know if you recognise that.
Yeah,
name.
he was at Celtic.
Yeah, he's gone to Troyes.
Big move.
Yeah.
Wow.
United.
Girl, speak to me. What happened at United?
Well, they obviously signed Sancho. Took them about 5 years to do it. Varane.
And then quickly replaced Sancho with Ronaldo.
Yeah, and obviously the big one everyone's been talking about, Tom Heaton. And Ronaldo.
Yeah, I think you have to say that they've had one of the... I don't think they've had the best transfer window, just purely because they didn't strengthen in the one area we all knew they needed to, outside of centre-back. And that's going to be... regardless of what Solskjaer does in his tactics, Fred and McTominay, that duo are going to cost you
Yeah.
more than once this season. They already have, arguably.
Yeah, I think the whole... I mean, we didn't really... I'm glad we signed Ronaldo, but I think the whole Ronaldo
It's a fairy
signing,
tale, isn't it?
I think it
Glad
was
you
to
were
stop
more
City.
than
I was going to
signing
say, you
to
signed
be
him to
honest.
stop City
Yeah,
signing
I think
him.
that was the only reason.
Like a spiteful kid.
Yeah. Outgoings, obviously, Dan James gone to Leeds. Tahit Chong's gone to Birmingham. Romero has left. I felt sorry for him, actually, because we just completely shunned him.
As soon as Anderson came back.
Yeah, and he was...
He never put a foot wrong for you.
No, and he could have easily been a lot of Premier League teams, like
Sort of a
first choice.
Martinez at
to be
Arsenal
honest,
type
yeah.
situation.
Timon Zebi and Brandon Williams gone out on loan to Norwich.
Yeah, good sign for Norwich, I
Yeah.
think, that one.
Newcastle signed Joe Willock and Santiago Munoz.
Munoz, yeah. Not quite the same name, is it? But it's
No.
It's close enough.
close
Yeah.
enough to be the goal striker. I actually had to do a quick Google just to see how old this kid was and just see what other correlations there were. And I think it ends with the name, I think. Yeah, I mean, we'll get to the viewer comments in a second, but Shearer was not best pleased with Newcastle's
I think
transfer
they're in
business.
trouble. I think if Leicester have had the best, I think they've had the worst. Because they brought in, what's his name from Arsenal?
Joe Willock.
Yeah,
Willock.
Willock, yeah.
But they had him for the second half of last season anyway, so they haven't really
Does it
improved
cast as a new
Yeah,
signing?
yeah.
Yeah.
They're just...
Yeah.
I mean, I know they improved in the second half of last season, but is it really enough to push on to then stay away from relegation again? I just don't think
Well, I
it
think
is.
we've already seen defensively Newcastle look very
Yeah.
frail.
Yeah, massively. And they are so reliant on St. Maximin because
And Wilson.
they're reliant on Wilson, but obviously as a striker, he's only as good as the service he gets, and St. Maximin is the primary person who's going to serve him. Willock will improve that, of course, if he
Yeah.
can recapture the form from last season, but that's a big if. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Newcastle could well find themselves in the relegation battle this year.
Outgoings, Andy Carroll, contract expired.
What a successful run at Newcastle that was. Did he score?
I have no
I
idea.
don't think
I
he
think he
scored.
only came on for a
To be
few
fair, I
games,
thought he was still at West Ham.
Still in our medical room.
living with Kevin Davies.
Yeah.
Christian Atsu's contract expired as well. Matty Longstaff went out on loan to Aberdeen.
Well, that's weird. I thought he was one of their prospects that they quite liked.
He was the other.
Was that just one of the
Sean?
other
Longstaff's
Sean,
brother,
yeah, he's the one that United have been linked with once or twice,
Yeah, but
Okay.
Matty scored against us both times he played us last season. Norwich brought in a lot of players. Solis from Panathinaikos, Angus Gunn from Southampton, Rashika from Werder Bremen, Coker from Southend, I'm assuming that's a youngster, Gibson from Burnley,
Not
Giannalis,
Darren Gibson, is it?
Ben Gibson.
Oh, okay.
Darren Gibbs, he was forced to retire. Wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay, I was going to say that
Criminal
was.
conviction.
Oh God, yes,
He
I
had the
forgot
drink
about
driving
that.
thing for
Yeah.
ages, and then let's said about that a bit.
Billy Gilmore from Chelsea, Josh Sargent from Werder Bremen, Brandon Williams from Manchester United.
So they've signed an entire new team.
Honestly,
Yeah.
there's about 12 players, yeah, and Kabak from Schalke.
So
I mean, he was at Liverpool last season, so that's not the worst.
no, obviously Billy Gilmore, Brandon Williams, and Kabak are the ones that stand out because they're the ones we know about.
Kabak was probably out of necessity because Schalke got relegated, didn't they?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, so they would have been looking to
Surely
lighten
they
their
need
load.
all the help they can get at the moment.
Well, we've seen this happen before with Fulham, right? In the past, where they got out and signed so many new players, regardless of how much money they've spent, and then there's not been enough time to get them all
Yeah, you can't mesh them all together.
exactly. So I mean,
Norwich need it.
they've had a horrific start fixture-wise
Yeah.
to the season. It's about whether they can.
Is it getting any easier for them now, or have they still got?
They got
Got
Arsenal
Arsenal.
next.
Yeah.
So yes, it is getting easier. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a case of can they look past those early drubbings and maintain some level of confidence and whatnot going into the games where they need to get points, and they're going to be there or thereabouts down the bottom.
I guess at
At the end of
least
the
with
season.
playing all these teams at the start, you've then got a easier fixture sort of run coming up.
I think that works as long as you don't get smashed
Yeah.
and you lose the card. If you get out of those games with a 2-0 loss, 3-0 loss at worst, you're okay. But when they've lost, was it 3-0 to Liverpool, 5-0 to
5-0.
City?
Have
And
have
who-
they
was it-
scored?
Yeah, they scored a penalty, didn't they? Who was it? Who did they play?
Pukki scored.
Was it-
Was it Leicester?
Yes.
They lost 2-1.
So yeah, big couple of games coming up for them.
Outgoings, mainly lots of loans and sort of contract terminations, but obviously Buendia was the big one.
Yeah. Big loss, I think, for them.
Southampton brought in Lyanco from Torino. Theo Walcott, obviously. Livramento looks actually quite good from Chelsea.
He was also linked with Brighton, and the main reason Brighton didn't get him was because of that buyback clause that they put in. 25 million.
Right.
Brighton
didn't want that because of that.
They basically just thought it was too cheap.
Okay.
I think it's basically a minimum 2 year, and then after that 2 year period, it's a buyback clause of 25 million.
Wow.
And 25 million for a 19-year-old English right back is peanuts.
Yeah.
Chelsea been clever with that because they've done that with a few other players.
Yeah,
as well,
they have.
So we're suggesting that that's the deal that Southampton have probably ended up with.
Okay. 25 million buyback.
We'll see. Maybe they were just not playing for a while and try and keep him under the radar.
Another Chelsea player as well, Simeo. I'm assuming these are youngsters, and Thierry Small from Everton.
Again, don't know.
Outgoings, Ryan Bertrand obviously gone to Leicester. Angus Gunn went to Norwich. Mario Lemina.
Yeah, he never really
bounced
lived
around
up
a
to the
bit,
hype,
didn't
did he?
Yannick Vestergaard, Danny Ings, and Obafemi.
I mean, those are players that were all first team regulars last season.
I didn't know Obafemi went as well.
Yeah, he went to Swansea.
Who have they got up front then?
You've still got Ched Evans.
No,
or Shea
Ched
Evans.
That's the rapist.
Yeah. Shea Evans, isn't it?
Shea Adams.
Shea Adams. Oh, God. You confused me there.
Wow.
And what's his name? Armstrong.
Adam Armstrong.
From Blackburn.
He's looked pretty good since he's come in as well. Do you want me to edit that bit out for you, Dan?
I don't even look.
Good Lord.
As soon as I said it, I was like, and you repeated it, I was like, no, that ain't right. Moving on to Tottenham, brought in Christian Romero from Atalanta, 50 million.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's started yet, but I mean, they've kept 3 clean sheets, so. Galini from Atalanta, Brian Gill from Sevilla, but Eric Lamela went the other way.
Yeah. He's looked pretty good so far, Brian Gill, to be fair.
Sarr and Emerson Royal from Barcelona.
Emerson Royal is hilarious because I completely didn't realise that Barcelona only signed him about 6 weeks previous to Spurs buying him from them. And, you know, there's been so much coming out about Barcelona, as we know, but one of the things that's come out is, I think it was Emerson that came out and basically said that, you know, Barcelona sold him up the river with the dream of playing for Barcelona, and Pjanic has also come out and talked about how badly he was treated. So, and I suspect that this isn't the end we've heard from all of these stories, but from Tottenham's point of view, I think, you know, we'll wait and see whether he was ever going to be a Barcelona player or not, but for 30 million, today's world, that's not a ridiculous risk in today's world.
Means they got 3 right backs, though, which is interesting.
Is he not a left back? I thought he was a left back.
No, he's a right back.
Okay. Well, they got rid of Sergio Aurier, didn't they? They tore up his contract.
Yeah, they've got Doherty and Tanganga.
Tanganga.
Tanganga's been alright, I think, so far. So it'd be interesting to see which one of them is the third choice. I assume Doherty. Which,
as we said last week, is weird given the relationship with Nuno.
Yeah.
So
maybe betrayed him by leaving.
Yeah, he's not forgotten.
Outgoings, they got rid of Gazaniga, Danny Rose.
Where did he go?
He's gone to Watford.
Okay.
Lamella, Juan Foyth, Joe Hart went to Celtic.
He's having a great time up there from what I've seen so far.
And it's just skipped for some reason. Sissoko went to Watford as well.
That went under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't even realise he was there until I saw him in a Watford shirt, and I was like, hang on a minute.
I think that's a fairly... I mean, how much did they pay for him, does it say?
6 mil.
I mean, that's not a bad signing.
Because that documentary, the Spurs one, all you saw from Sissoko was they just hard working, shows up on time, good around the dressing room,
consummate professional.
Yeah, just that's a good player to have in your team.
He's what, 30?
Yeah, got to be around.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, he's got Champions League experience with Spurs. Whether you rate him or not, that's going to be handy for Watford.
I do remember when Spurs signed him. Was it from Newcastle for like 30 million? Like a few years ago, I was like,
Newcastle.
What are they doing?
Laughing all the way to the bank. They were.
Watford brought in Danny Rose, Ashley Fletcher from Middlesbrough.
That's a very odd one because he's ex-West Ham.
Yeah.
And he never scored for us, even though there was lots of potential about him. Then he went on loan, and I'm fairly certain he never set the world alight, even at like Middlesbrough where he was at.
Yeah, I don't
know. Sunderland as well, wasn't he? He was in their documentary.
Emmanuel Dennis, from Club Brugge. He scored on his debut. And Josh King, and the rest are sort of free transfers and stuff. Outgoings, a lot.
Troy Deeney's obviously.
Troy Deeney's obviously gone to Birmingham. Andre Gray has gone to QPR. Chalobah's gone to Fulham. Which is weird. I don't really see Chalobah as like a championship player. I thought he was quite a decent player.
Yeah.
Who else? Jerome Sinclair left. Isaac Success.
I'm disappointed he's not in the Premier League just because of the name.
Yeah. It's not as good as Marvellous.
Marvellous Akamba, whatever his name is, yeah.
Moving on to West Ham. Left it quite late, didn't they?
Yeah, as we always do.
You brought in LMB from Chelsea, Neves from Reading, Okaflex from Celtic.
He's, great name. He's actually been scoring quite a lot of goals. I mean, he got 2 against Celtic when we played them, which was quite funny.
Areola from PSG.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, so apparently Fabianski's going into his last year of contract. He's already retired from international duty. Rumour is that we're not going to keep him on beyond this year. And so Areola he's a loan with a view to buy. Yeah. So I think it's a bit more of a long term.
Is it option or obligation?
That is a very good question. I think it's obligation, but I could be wrong.
Obviously Vlasic, I think they signed on deadline day.
We did, yeah.
And wouldn't have been a West Ham window if you hadn't signed a Czech Republican.
I mean, the funny thing is West Ham are actually now buying into this whole Czech conveyor belt because on their press release on social media...
They must be on Football Manager just putting Czech Republic.
It's the easiest filter in the world, isn't it?
3 stars, 4 stars.
But they actually... So they're now getting Kufal and Souček. They got them to do the announcement of Krau coming in, and they made a bit of banter about it, about the fact that Krau said I had two extra agents. We are. We're cornering the world on Czech Republic players. But the other thing as well, there's been a second takeover bid launched today by this Pi Capital people who I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure, and they look a bit shady to me from what I've seen and read. But supposedly there is a secret silent backer who's going to be the head honcho who's putting a lot of the money in, and supposedly he is from the Czech Republic. Cool. I wonder why that is.
Only one real sort of big name outgoings was Philippe Anderson.
We sold him for all of 3 million.
Yeah, back to the club you bought him for.
Yeah, great business. It's a shame with him because he was amazing that first season and he just never reached the heights, and he's not a David Moyes player because he just doesn't work hard enough. And he's got a bit of the Ozils about him, that even when he works hard he doesn't look like he is. Sort of like that demeanour about him. So and frankly the way that West Ham have been performing recently and the transfers we brought in, I don't think anyone can really question David Moyes' decision on that.
And lastly, Wolves, they brought in Hwang Hee-chan. I'm looking forward to saying that one. From Leipzig. Jose Sarr from Olympiacos, that's the goalkeeper. Nuri, I think he was already there.
Yeah,
I think they must have signed him on a permanent. And Trincao on loan from Barcelona. He's started quite well, actually.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
Outgoings, obviously, Mourinho took Patricio with them.
Did he?
Yeah, he's gone to Roma.
I did not know that. Who's their goalie now then?
Sarr literally just said that. They signed Sarr to replace Patricio.
Fucking hell. God.
That's the attitude I get.
It's the mind games for the quiz later.
Doesn't listen to me.
He's going to need it as well. Pick some gems.
They signed Sarr from Olympiacos.
So who's he replacing?
Moving on. Outgoings, not just Morgan Gibbs-White. The rest, I don't think anyone would really know.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so in what is fast becoming our record length first segment.
I did think that. I was like, we're talking about a lot more than I thought we were.
What do we think then? If I go around the room, best transfer windows and worst transfer. Fran's negating to respond. That's fine.
City.
What best?
Yeah, Jack Grealish. Such a girl. Such a
Just like those cards, don't you?
Yeah, love them.
What would you think? Best and worst?
I said Leicester earlier, so I'll stick with Leicester.
And worst?
Newcastle or Burnley.
Okay.
No, I don't think United. I agree with Chris. Like, the one player we needed to sign was a CDM, and we went for every player other than the CDM.
I mean, he could probably do a job there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Probably
Fred,
could,
anyway. Yeah. Best, I would probably say Leicester as well. I think they always have the best window. They just seem to spot these players that no one's really thought about.
Yeah, a little bit like you. I would have said that West Ham would be in the conversation if we'd have signed a striker, but again, we didn't, and that's a big miss. We've signed good players who improve us, but to not sign another striker for Antonio is concerning, especially with the extra games that Europe brings this year. So for the same reason, I'm not going to include them. I think I'd have to say Leicester have to be up there, because even if on paper right now we don't know how some of these signings are going to pan out, history tells us that they normally do.
Yeah. I do agree with what Joe said. I know we'll get to it later as well with Chelsea. I think the one gap they had was a striker, and they signed Lukaku, and they've plugged that gap. So.
Yeah, which is what we said about that Man City maybe didn't do. And I looked at something earlier where it was ranking the
this guy. Why did it drop? Oh yeah.
What about Man City? How dare you? Let me see if I can find it. It was something to do with Man City being like fifth. Yeah, he reckoned that Man City had the fifth best transfer window. I'm not so sure you can say that, because the squad they already had, as we say, didn't need that improvement. So I don't know whether you can say one signing on somebody that, yes, maybe does improve them a bit, wasn't what they needed.
I think they'll get Haaland next year, though, and then they'll be unreal.
So, yeah, and this particular post has actually put Man United as the best, with West Ham second.
Is Jadon Sancho even started yet?
He started once.
Started against Wolves.
Yeah, didn't do a great deal on his first game.
Fran looked good though.
So right, okay. Well, what we're going to do now is just very quickly touch on what our viewers thought. Are you ready for me, Fran? You're not ready. So we asked basically everyone what they thought the best signing of the window was, worst signing, best transfer window from a team point of view, and worst. We had a couple of responses. I think we even had one on Instagram from Shearer, but I think he copied what he'd said onto Facebook. So you might notice I'm waffling here because I'm waiting for Fran to catch up.
You could have done. It's not in the notes.
It's not in the notes, you're right. I do apologise.
Okay. Right, Pete. Lovely Pete said the best Man United, the likes of Ronaldo, Sancho, Varane. They missed a trick not letting Lingard move on though.
I don't know if Man United missed a trick. I think Lingard missed a trick.
Lingard, yeah, 100%.
I don't know if Man United are going to suffer from that particularly.
Bit of both. I would like to have sold Lingard and used that money towards a CDM.
Man United don't need the money to spend on a CDM. They don't need to, unless they're that worried about financial fair play that they needed to sell
As a
first.
player.
Yeah, it was annoying as well because like after we signed Varane, the whole thing was that we needed to. Even the owners were saying we need to sell to buy. We need to sell to buy.
Yeah.
And then we went and bought Cristiano Ronaldo.
But you were never really linked with anyone
No.
that I can remember.
No.
There was everyone was linked with Declan Rice this summer, but I don't think it was ever serious.
I think we're just going to get him next year instead.
What's going to happen with like Van Beek and people like that?
Yeah, well, gosh, don't get me started on Van de Beek.
The forgotten
Van
man.
de Beek, that's it.
Has he even played?
No. Honestly, like...
Has he even come off the bench?
No.
Why is he there?
Honestly,
Anyway.
if I could sit Solskjaer down and ask him what his plan is with Van de Beek, I would do.
Worst, Arsenal, need I say more? Chris, sorry to your neighbour, sure he's a really nice guy behind the tears. Signing of the season, going to mix it up and say Michael Olive?
Yeah, this is the guy we talked about earlier who's gone to Palace for Reading.
5-year deal for the 19-year-old. He was on fire with Reading last season, and for just 8 mil, it's an absolute steal. Eyebrow raiser, that sweet magic man, Danny Ings, landing a deal at a proper club.
Couldn't resist a dig at Southampton, could he?
No, he could not.
Pompey thing.
A huge Pompey fan.
It's got to be one.
In reply to this, Joe Morton. Very measured, this reply from Joe.
Yeah, he'd obviously had a good day.
I'm very proud of him.
Well, Chelsea didn't play this weekend, did he? So
No,
he's
can't
probably on a
count.
level playing field, isn't he?
Can't agree with United, but yes, they made some great signings, but still not got a decent CDM, and that's their weakness. Whereas Chelsea's weakness was up front, and we've gone and signed one of the best strikers in the game, and also a risk-free signing of who's that? Saul?
Soundagares, yeah.
Oh, improves our squad depth. Also, we're in profit. Villa have done great business, and I think I'd say City or Liverpool have done the worst business. City have majorly overspent on Grealish and failed to sign a striker, and Liverpool have let players like Ronaldo and Shaqiri go and not replace them.
I mean, it's rare that we agree on almost everything that Joe has just said there, but I think I do.
Yeah.
I don't think he's missed the mark on any of that. Chelsea didn't really need to sign anybody outside of a striker. No. That's pretty much all they did sign.
Is that just Shearer saying about Newcastle?
Yeah, so Shearer just said, I don't think I need to talk about how bad Newcastle's were. It's bad times for a Newcastle fan right now.
I feel sorry for them, like having an owner that just wants to sell the club, doesn't want to invest, but won't sell the club at the same time.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not good for them. Right, okay. Well, what is probably the record for the first half of the show at just over an hour and 10 minutes. We will take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk about Will's podcast. See you in a minute. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. So now it's time to fully allow Will to introduce himself. So Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
So I run a media platform. It's not just a podcast. We do have a digital magazine and a website and everything as well. And what we do is we focus on everything off the pitch in rugby. So we don't look at the game and everything like that, but we look at what goes on behind the scenes in governing the game, running the game, such as sponsorship, facilities, fan engagement that clubs do, their community work, and everything like that.
So we're talking professional level?
Professional level and down to the grassroots as well. So the podcast that I do, we speak to people that work within the game, ask them about their stories, their experiences that they've had, and basically just sharing what they know to help the game grow, basically.
Excellent. And I presume that everyone can find this podcast
on all your regular
apps. Places.
Yeah, that's the one.
I mean, I'll be honest, I've never been a huge fan of rugby, but I do try and pay attention to the big tournaments, the big international games, Six Nations, World Cup, all that kind of stuff. But as we touched on earlier, one of the things I love about rugby is the fans. Mm-hmm. In that sort of carnival atmosphere you always see, it just looks like everyone's having such a great time.
Yeah.
And I wish that you could go to a football game and have the same experience.
Do you know, one of the reasons for that is the lack of restrictions that you get in rugby matches. So obviously football has that rule where you can't drink alcohol within sight of the pitch. Mm-hmm. Rugby doesn't have that rule. We don't have fan segregation. We don't have all these restrictions that sometimes cause a bit of aggro unnecessarily. So,
yeah, I cannot see a future in football where any of those things you've just mentioned are ever allowed.
Is it Fulham that have like a family stand and stuff like that, where you can anyone can buy a ticket and go in? But I don't know how they
How do you police that?
Yeah, police it and make sure that everyone's behaving, basically. But I think there's a few kind of teams lower down the league that do that, but they're probably just...
But when we immediately say, how do you police that? Nothing really needs policing.
Not in rugby,
Rugby.
No.
This is true.
I mean, I've been to games where there has been a bit of, aggro, but nothing that you saw of the scenes at, Wembley in the Euros.
Is it because, fans are just nice? Or because... but I say that in terms of, because we'd say, if you went to a Man United-Man City game, they would literally be at each other because...
Yeah, but that's a derby match, isn't it?
Yeah, but they'd be at each other and they're, people would be angry, or they're also passionate about their club, but people are passionate about their rugby club, I guess, but just in a different way.
Yeah, and there's just a level of respect, I think, that
the
rugby fans have, and sometimes it's arrogant respect, which sometimes I don't really like that side of the game, where you just get that argument of, rugby's better than football, this is why, look at how players treat the ref and everything like that, which I don't get on board with. But there is a culture in rugby which is 30 big blokes smashing hell out of each other, but will buy each other a beer after the game, and that does sort of fall back into the stadiums as well, I think.
I mean, I couldn't tell you which game it was, but I remember it was might have been a Heineken Cup final, maybe. Where a player literally punched somebody in the face on the ground within the first 3 or 4 minutes and got red carded. And I think I'm right in saying that it was the first time that somebody had ever been red carded either in a Heineken Cup final or that early in a cup final, whatever it was. And after the game, you just said there about the respect between the players. One of the guys tweeted and said, "I'm really sorry for what I've done." Tagged the guy and said, "Can't apologise enough." And the guy responded and went, "No worries, mate. Hell of a punch."
Exactly.
Can you imagine two football players doing that? Would never do that.
A lot of people criticise footballers now for hugging after games and stuff like that, and they say that all the passion's gone, they're all too friendly. So there is that side of it as well.
Yeah. So yeah, as you say, like what do we? I mean, if you ask Roy Keane, what would you want? He'd want a few leg breakers thrown in there.
I don't think Roy Keane would have been hugging Vieira, would he?
Probably not. No.
But having you on the podcast, Will, does give us a unique opportunity to sort of deeper dive into the two sports and how they correlate. I know you've come prepared with some of your comparisons and how maybe the two games can learn from each other, but I suspect it's going to be more football learning from rugby than...
Well, I'll start by saying that football is a bigger and better sport than rugby is, I think. Like, in terms of what it brings to people all around the world. Rugby is a very small sport compared to football. So, I mean, rugby's only been professional since 1995. So, 25 years or so. So, you can't compare them. Mm-hmm. But there are certain things that rugby does that football can learn from, and one of them is that horrible VAR. The use of like video ref in rugby is just years and way above anything that football does. I mean, they've had VAR, or what they call TMO, the television match official. I think it first came in 2001.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
But it's only been probably the last 5 to 10 years where it's been properly utilised and utilised really, really well. And there's just certain things that they do that just football, I don't know why football just hasn't seen the model that rugby do and just emulated it. They mic up the refs, so if you're watching from home on TV, you can hear everything the ref is saying, and that's not just like the decision that they've made, it's communicating with players during play as well. So if someone's offside or if someone's about to be offside, you can just hear them say like, "Oh, Johnny, like take 2 yards back," and stuff like that, which is just helping the game flow and everything like that. And people watching it learn from it as well. Yeah. Which you don't get. And just even in the stadium as well, you can buy ref links, so you go to watch a game live, you can hear what the ref is saying, I didn't know that. Everything like that. Which is it's quite a big revenue channel for England, because they charge like 5 or 6 quid for it.
So do you not hear it in the stadium?
No, you don't hear it in the stadium at all, but you have your little like one earpiece, go to the game and you hear it. And the best thing that they do compared to football referees is they explain their decisions. So even if you don't agree with it, you can hear them talking to the television match official, and they'll say, "This is why I'm going to award the penalty," or "This is why I'm going to award the try. I've seen this, I've seen that. Do you agree?" He'll go, "Yeah, I agree with that," and then the decision is made. It's not, "Let's go to VAR, let's run to a little screen on the side of the pitch, let's see some dodgy wavy lines with no one talking," and then a decision is made. Yeah. So I think that is just something that football can learn from, definitely. Just communication. And I know there's been people saying before, like, you can't have refs mic'd up because of the effing and blinding that you'll hear, but
that will soon stop.
Yeah, I think so. And they could learn from American football as well, where a ref, you can turn it on and off. So it doesn't have to be constantly on. And I think they trialled it in Australia, maybe.
Yeah, I remember seeing that video. Yeah. That was really interesting, that video, where you just heard, I guess because we've always seen it so silently, you just assume that they are just refereeing in silence, other than when they put their finger to their ear. Yeah. But actually, when you listen to that referee, it's constant. They're just constantly talking to each other. And
it's just a little part of the game that you don't see, but you get to see in rugby.
Yeah, there are rumours that the mic'd up aspect of it is coming to football, maybe next season. It wouldn't surprise me if it gets trialled in the World Cup next year first. That's usually when they try. It's crazy that you use such humongous tournaments to test these things, but historically that's when they've done it.
Yeah, they're usually a lot better at it as well.
Yeah. When you look at VR at the Euros, I mean, he got so much praise. Yeah. Touch wood, in fairness, VR so far has been a lot better this season.
It's not been as big a talking point this season as it was.
No, not yet. Anyway.
And rugby did have its learning curves. It did struggle a few times. I think it was the 2007 Rugby World Cup final with England or South Africa, where there was a try disallowed for England that everyone was basically like, "That guy's in touch. The guy's in touch. How can the video ref not see it?" So we have had those moments, but
they're few and
far between. And how good it is now, you just forget about it. Yeah. And it is something of all the sports as well. They're just like cricket, tennis. When they use video refereeing, it just seems miles better than.
Yeah, it's really odd that VAR has been talked about. Before it came in, it was talked about so much from everyone in the football press and the managers all saying we need technology in sport.
Yeah.
Ball line technology or goal line technology has been easy to implement because it's either in or it's not, and it's all automated, so there's no questioning it. And I don't recall, other than one, was the Sheffield United Villa game last year, I think it was, where it was Sheffield United and somebody. Where
it was because it was Grealish who did the interview afterwards. It was
Was
like,
it?
I haven't seen it, but
Yeah,
I'd be
where some kind of like 1 in a million situation happened that the technology couldn't see it. But outside of that, it's worked flawlessly. But it stuns me to think that all these other sports, and I appreciate there are differences with how the game plays and the natural stoppages, but it is amazing that they cannot adapt what they've seen in cricket, in rugby, in tennis, to make a better attempt at VR. Because here we are, this is our 3rd season with VR now, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And we are only just beginning to see, signs of improvement.
Although I think they did say it would take up to like 5 years for it to sort of actually start working properly.
Yeah.
Like
We've
iron out
definitely
all
complained
the
about it
curves.
this season.
Yeah,
So
well, there were only 3 games in.
Yeah, but
Give it
think
time.
about the 3 games last season.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
certainly
At the start of last season, I think we were talking about handballs so much, weren't we? Because VR kept giving handballs.
Yeah, when they kept changing the rules every week, they had to keep up with it.
So I hope that we are, on a steady improvement line now, and we're not going to kind of regress back to where we were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, rugby's just been so much better
Yeah.
for that sort of thing.
They've had more time at it, but yeah.
Do you think that the way in which rugby does have more natural stopping points, football does to a point, but often in rugby, for example, I guess if something breaks down, i.e. there's a foul but you've still got possession, you keep going.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to bring it back.
Yeah.
When you decided that there was an infringement, whereas in football, the transition between attack and defence or just another attacking phase can be so quick that you can potentially undo so much of what's happened to go back to a decision that you missed, even if it's only 30 seconds ago. There's a lot of football potentially you're cancelling out.
And I think rugby does benefit from the fact that it is a slower game, and one of the big criticisms in football with VAR is the time it takes for decisions to be made. But I think rugby fans are used to delayed decisions and stuff like that, and waiting for a decision to be made. So I think that works against football a little bit, but I think they still can do a bit. It's mainly the communication side of it. If fans watching at home and during the game could listen to a referee explain a decision, you understand it and you could accept it a lot better.
Yeah. I think, and I know the other, there's a massive moth that's just flying around.
That's a big old boy.
That's distracting all of us and just flying around in our faces right now. He's gone out. He's gone outside. We're good. And on your notes, I can see the next bit is about sin bins.
Sin bins, yeah. So in rugby, if you get a yellow card during a game, you go off for 10 minutes, basically. And this is normally done for repeat offences of a certain thing, like if you commit a load of offences, like when the other team is about to score a try, violent play and stuff like that. So if you punch someone but not in the face, you'll probably get a yellow card.
That's amazing.
If there's a bit of a scrap.
If you break someone's ribs, just a yellow. Just watch yourself. Go and have 10 minutes, have a word with yourself.
And that's basically what it's for. Basically just like a cooling off period, like how they have it in ice hockey when it sort of kicks off there as well. It's just a cooling off period. And I think in terms of the way that football's governed and how the players are governed, I think there are certain moments when a sin bin could work.
So I think a good example would maybe be that Reece James red card.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe a sin bin, something like that, like an accidental, because I don't think he, purposely handballed it.
Yeah,
No.
it was so instinctive, it happened so quickly.
Yeah.
And we talked about whether a penalty goal could have been given. I know penalty tries are awarded
a thing,
in rugby. So could they have done a penalty goal because it was going in and then said to Reece James 10 minutes?
Yeah.
That would have been a much more adequate
But sin
penalty.
bin's more like repeated.
It's repeated defence, but it is
an
also
aggression. He wasn't really.
No, but he
was
did
just unlucky.
something that was stopping a goal. If someone did one thing that stopped a try
But
in rugby,
no
they
one-
might also get a sin bin.
It wasn't intentional.
No, that's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be a red card because
Because it wasn't intentional.
Yeah,
wasn't
but that's why
intentional.
I'm saying it shouldn't really be a sin bin thing either. 'cause
Well, it
it's
should-
not
I think
be
it
a
should-
penalty then. As though you just think it just should be a penalty, no other punishment. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the current rule as it stands is if you deny an obvious goal scoring opportunity, with the use of your hand, it's an automatic red card.
Yeah.
So,
It's harsh.
but I mean, let's say for example that incident happened in the 10th minute. You know, you're down to 10 men for 80 minutes, whereas you give them a goal because it would have gone in anyway, and then say, right, you go off for 10 minutes. Yes, you're at a disadvantage for 10 minutes, but you do get him back for the other 70.
I just mean I don't think it should be a sin bin because I feel like a sin bin is more for like when you're being a dick.
So in which case then would you say yellow card plus a penalty goal and he stays on the pitch? Would that be
that would
better?
be better, yeah.
Or do you not think a yellow card at all? Do you think just award the goal and crack on?
It depends, doesn't it? But I do, if for this instance, I do think the sin bin is not the thing for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the thing I was thinking of the other day was that Xhaka tackle, which was a red card, which the thing that stood out to me, and I can see why it's a red card because of how he went in and everything like that, but there's something that stood out to me is when the commentator said, if he caught him there, it would have been dangerous.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're saying if he caught him, he didn't properly catch him, but he was still aggressive and it was still out of control, which in the current rules of the game is a red card.
Yeah.
But if a sin bin or an orange card, if you're going to call it that, was an option, the ref could pull Xhaka aside and say, that was a bit too much, take 10 minutes off the pitch, cool yourself down, come back on.
I think Xhaka was looking for a way out. I think if he'd have been given a sin, he'd have come on and done exactly the same thing again.
That's the problem. If they get sin binned and then they come on and they end up injuring or something like that, then you've got people saying, well, why is that a sin bin? It should have been a red card.
And equally, if he comes back on after the sin bin and scores the winner.
Yeah, true. But then the point of the sin bin in rugby is that you're punished for a certain amount of time, so it's your opportunity then to capitalise on that. The Liverpool-Chelsea game, it ruined the game.
Yeah.
That red card.
As a spectacle, it destroyed the game.
With that, because I always find, obviously we have sin bins in our football. I always find, at
grassroots level, we have sin bins, I
always feel like you almost sort of have to go all out in those 10 minutes to try and make the most of it.
Yeah.
I guess...
What was that?
What's it for? What do you get it for?
So if you're like being lippy to the ref, and that's
it's almost solely for that.
I got sin bin in like the first game it was at.
Pre-season friendly, you're going to try hard referee. I'm pretty sure it's almost exclusively for mouth to referees.
Back and stuff. Well, they could just use it for that then. Maybe if they're trying to cut that out of the game, and if they've got
it'd be a five-a-side game.
But if they've got video refs and they're mic'd up, and that's something that they need to do, then maybe working together that could potentially solve their problem.
Yeah, I am surprised. I mean, usually, I can't remember which way around it is, but normally you will see a change in one at the upper echelons of sport, or you will see it at the grassroots level.
Yeah.
And usually, as long as it's not technology based, usually it will filter through.
Yeah.
So whether it's some kind of offside rule adjustment or whatever it is, usually that will filter through so that it becomes the standard across all of the sort of the pyramid of football. So for sin bins to have been in for 2 or 3 years now, for that to have not even reached football league level, let alone Premier League, it's quite odd. I mean, what makes it so special that only grassroots can implement it? Why is that not being implemented at Premier League level? Because certainly from a kid's point of view, they do look up and look at the Premier League as an example when they see players behaving in the way that they do,
screaming,
talking at negative role models type thing. If they get sent off and said, no, you cannot talk to me like that, go and sit down for 10 minutes, surely as a message that sends out a clear line, respect line that if you cross, you're going to get punished. Whereas at the moment, the foul and abusive language is still a red card offence. It's not changed. Yeah. It's just that no referees ever pick you up on it. You might do it at our level if you get... Because usually the language towards referees at our level is not that bad.
No.
You only get 1 or 2 players on each team that will give mouth. But to really be abusive, it's quite rare. So when it does happen, it's a fairly simple red card because it's so rare. Whereas in Premier League, you see the way they crowd the referees, the way they talk. You can visibly see them swearing.
I think the crowding has got better. I don't think they crowd around the referee as much as they used to. It's mainly sort of captains and that go in and
influence decisions and stuff.
If it was just a captain one-on-one discussion, I've got no problem with that.
Yeah. Because
referees at that level should be absolutely fine to have that conversation and deal with it. Well, even if the captain doesn't get the answer he wants, that conversation can be had and it can be respectful. But when you've got 4 or 5 players crowding the referee, that's when it starts to cross the line.
In rugby as well, it's actually the captain who is the only person who's allowed to speak to the referee. If someone comes out and starts screaming at the referee, or even just saying something that the referee doesn't like, and some referees can be quite jobsworth on this, especially at grassroots level, there's other punishments where you get a penalty and they just march you back 10 metres. So you just get punished in different ways and stuff like that.
So it's just a lot more strict.
It is stricter, but it's...
But people respect it. So
Yeah.
like, footballers just don't respect it.
Excellent. Let's move on. So your third point, you talk about in-game interviews.
Yeah, well, this is something that I picked up from another podcast. There's a guy, Tim Cocker, who actually works for BT Sport. He runs a rugby podcast. And it's something that he has championed at BT Sport himself, and they've done quite successfully. And what he says is that sport is basically storytelling. So when you're watching a game as a fan, you want to learn as much as you can about the game, about the people involved, the characters and everything like that. And what they've started doing on BT Sport is during a match, they'll cut to someone in the stands, either like an attack coach, a defence coach, set piece coach or something like that. And they'll interview them during the game, say 20, 30 minutes in, basically saying, right, Steve, what do you think so far of the game? Your area of the game that you look after and you coach, how is this going for you? Is it going to plan? Is there anything that you think the team can improve on and stuff like that? And it's just a really neat little 2 or 3 minute interview that just gives great insight into the game, basically. And just it helps people that might not understand rugby understand it a little bit better. And I think football could do with something like that. There's too much, for me, media trained interviews where people don't give sort of honest opinions. And I'm not expecting like Martin Tyler to cut to like...
Imagine Jeff Shreves trying that.
Jeff Shreves cutting in and just chatting to Tuchel on the sideline. But
I don't know if it's Sky as well, but I think BT do with the referee. They've got a referee working from now on, and they say, "Do you agree with the referee's decision?"
But this is more like you learn more about what the preparation the club has done for this game and stuff like that. Where they start talking, they don't talk in details of tactics, obviously, but there's just certain things that you pick up on and just learn throughout various games. I just think it's quite interesting. A lot of football teams now have like set piece coaches and stuff like that. So if there's been a few corners in the game and they ask if like, is it going well? Is it what you're trying to do working at the moment or anything like that?
Speak to the Arsenal coach, 4-0 down. Set pieces. How do you think it's going?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because there are other sports that do it. I know cricket does it. Often on some of the games, actually, like the wicket keeper is mic'd up. Sometimes even the batsmen are.
Yeah.
And that's very...
And they do it in Formula 1 as well, don't they? They occasionally speak to someone on the paddock and stuff like that during a race.
So during race weekends, then they normally have a team that they'll have communication with, and they'll bounce stuff off that team principle for the weekend. So it would be interesting to see how that would be adopted, because there is this element of secrecy with football, in that nobody can possibly know anything about your team in fear for giving away something to the opposition, which might... Yeah, exactly.
But this is something that they could talk to, like, everyone can see what's happening during the game. It's just their opinion of whether it's going to plan or not, or just other factors that might be happening in the game. Say there's been a red card. You might having like a heat of the moment.
I'd love somebody
heat of the moment like opinion on whether it was a red card or not is just something that
trying desperately not to swear on that.
So amazing. After they've just kicked all the bottles down.
Just someone catching him in the tunnel as he's going off.
Can I get a quick word? That would be cool.
I wouldn't want to be that interviewer.
That's who drew the short straw there. It would be interesting. I honestly don't know how well it will be adopted, just because of how football is and how this sort of secrecy is, to actually break into that during it. I mean, you often see international level now, sometimes in big Premier League games, where they'll do interviews with managers before a game rather than just afterwards. And as you say, they're so kind of pointless interviews because they're just asking questions about what you're expecting from this game.
Yeah.
Well, 22 blokes are going to play football and our tactics against theirs, and we'll see who wins. And it's like, well, you're not really adding anything to the narrative of what we're about to watch.
No, and it's also, I find it quite repetitive what they all say, and especially with the fact that the FA punishes managers for coming out and speaking their mind about officials and stuff like that. Where like in rugby, for example, if a referee makes a decision, they come out and explain their decision to the media. You don't really get that in football either.
You used to. Yeah. It wasn't so long ago that you did get referees that would come out and
they just have this protective bubble around them, which I don't really like.
I mean, if there's ever one referee I'd love to have a documentary of, Mike Dean. get in documentary, get him mic'd up.
He would love to be mic'd up.
Oh yeah, he would be at the
first person there.
Front of the queue. That's a bit of me. I think I think I'd like to see it, but I don't know how well it will be adopted.
Yeah.
And I feel like with the media, with football, how it is, I feel like they'd make a hash of it.
Yeah,
frankly,
potentially.
I think they'd end up asking questions that are just irrelevant, rather than trying to get the feelings of that person. They'd end up just asking almost like questions that could be answered with a yes or no.
Yeah.
type
Well,
thing.
sometimes these interviews are quite funny because they'll just be talking to them, but something will happen in the game. So the guy will ask a question and it'll just get completely ignored. Something's happening in the game that this guy's actually got to do his job for and respond to and watch and stuff like that. So we're like, all right, cool. Yeah, we're going to come back to him in a bit.
I do find the notion you were saying about set piece coaches. I do find the notion of set piece coaches in football so odd. I mean, like with all the they have attack, defence coaches, goalkeeping coaches, fitness coaches. How is set piecing a set piece specialist such a thing that you require a specific coach for it? Why can't an attack or a defence coach incorporate that already?
Funny you say that though. I have seen the difference in the teams that have had set piece coaches. Like Brentford brought in a set piece coach and they scored that goal against Arsenal.
But who was the pundit that was saying like, shouldn't that just be what a coach is supposed to do?
Yeah.
Probably Roy Keane.
Yeah.
Sort of sounds like the sort of thing with Graham Souness, one of those two.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I hate to be horrid and push on, but I think we're probably just about run out of time to talk about the other bits. We were going to talk about salary cap because I feel like that discussion could
That'll
end up
go on for ages.
go on for a while. So perhaps next time we have you on the show,
I'll come back on another time
Exactly.
at some point and do it.
So what we'll do, we will get cracking then as I try and get my soundboard to come alive. There we go. We'll get on with Dan the Statman. Dan the Statman.
So question was simply just which 7 of the 20 Premier League clubs made a profit this transfer window?
Well, we know one, Chelsea.
We know one, yeah.
I'm going to say Brighton.
Brighton did. They made 0.4 million.
0.4.
And Chelsea made 3.9
Southampton?
Yep. Southampton made the most amount of profit. They made 18.9.
Okay.
Did Aston Villa?
Villa made 5 million profit.
Okay.
4-4 at the moment.
Everton didn't really sell anyone, did they? So I don't think it'll be them. Burnley haven't sold anybody. Man United haven't sold anybody. City
It's
haven't
bad
sold
that we've literally just got
Liverpool? Liverpool?
No.
Okay. I mean, we could just literally just go from top to bottom in any of the other
Go on.
clubs.
2 more and then I'll tell you
Watford.
the rest. Nope.
Wolves.
Wolves made 4.6 million profit.
And the other one I would say Burnley.
No, not Burnley. So it was, I'll just name them all. It was Brighton, Chelsea, Villa, Everton,
It was Everton, okay.
Brentford. Brentford made 13.5 million. And Southampton.
So who did Brentford sell? Was there big? They must have, because
Maybe
they've.
Sallows.
Yeah, maybe it was just an accumulation of, of sales. All right, okay. Well, thank you very much for that. So this week, explain the quiz to me. So Fran's been.
I've basically delegated the whole
she
thing.
delegated it. She basically texted me saying, think of 5 players. And then go from there.
Excellent. Well, okay.
So-
Is it football with Will today then?
Yeah, we'll have the little intro and then we'll have it. Welcome back to Football with Fran / Will. Very much Will this evening. So, yeah.
It's me.
I think Dan's go first
Dan
this
to
week,
go
isn't
first.
it?
What I'm going to do, I'm going
Oh.
to shift slightly because I don't want Dan's little
Yeah,
side
I'm
eye
concerned
coming
about
in
Dan. Yeah, I'm concerned about him who's cheating.
So Dan first. So what Fran has basically said, I name a player, you guys bid for how many clubs you think they play for.
Yeah, you have to tell us how many clubs he's played for.
Okay. So our first
And
player, not straight. So our first player is Damien Duff,
Ooh.
and he's played for 6 clubs.
It's a podcast, so we need to be speaking.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? What are you thinking?
Think and talk.
I think
You can't
maybe.
multitask. In your own time.
Yeah, 3.
It's a good bid.
That's a bitch of a bid, that is.
3's
But that's
always a
a-
trick.
Can you do 3 is
It's
the
a
question.
hesitant
Because I
three.
can do 3, but
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure I can do 4.
I I think you should go for it. Isn't it? It's
Go
my first
for it.
time on the pod. It's my first time
All right.
hosting.
Go on then.
home.
Lovely.
I'll go 4. I'll have a
I wanna
forfeit,
see
so it's
who,
fine. Okay. Are you not doing 5 then, I presume?
no, God.
Right. Chelsea,
Correct.
Blackburn,
Correct.
Fulham.
Correct.
Birmingham.
Sunderland.
Close. Newcastle.
I'm glad I didn't go for 4.
Newcastle. He's playing for them when they're main manager right now.
So Newcastle United, Melbourne City, and Shamrock Rovers.
I was trying to think of an
Yeah.
Irish club, but I didn't want to risk it.
Dan, 1-0.
Excellent. Lovely.
1-0.
Chris, you're up.
So our next player has played for 7. He's been a bit of a journeyman, I'm going to call it. A lot of promising talent, but never really lived up to it.
Ooh, we don't get this with Fran.
Right, I was
No,
going
no.
to say, can you stop making this better?
He's showing you up here.
They're going to be stuck. Well, you're not even going to have me for the
The
next
player
couple of
is Adel Taarabt.
Oh, okay.
7 clubs.
Also show me up because you can pronounce the name. I'm like, who's that?
He's 32 years old. I thought he was...
Right, well, you're going to be stacked in a minute. Just keep it down. Chris, what are you
Just
thinking?
Chris first.
I'm gonna play it safe and go 2.
Yeah, I knew you were going to do that.
That's what you did to me on the last one.
Do you know those 2?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right, come on.
Or
no
do I?
conferring.
Well, do I?
Chris, you had the worst poker face ever.
Yeah, I can only really think of 2. I don't even think I could hazard a guess at 3. And it's been 7.
7 clubs, yeah.
I imagine a lot of them are like Qatar and stuff, are there?
That would be
Well, we can't
telling
ask
you.
that.
Well, I don't know any clubs in Qatar.
I reckon I might be able to do 3, but the third would be a
Yeah,
guess.
I'll let you go.
Okay. Well, QPR and Fulham.
That's correct, yes.
So the third one I was gonna guess was Maccabi Haifa.
No.
Okay.
I was thinking Monaco, but I don't think it was there.
No. So he started at Lens?
Yeah,
Then went to Spurs.
Oh, I forgot he was at Spurs.
Was he?
Yeah. Not for very long.
Fulham, AC Milan,
Shut up! Did Toronto go to AC Milan?
Benfica, and then Genoa.
I wouldn't have got them.
Yeah, I mean, he
What on earth? He must have like stuck out like a sore thumb at AC Milan. All right, that's 1-1. Game on. It's not a 5-0 whitewash like it was
It's one of
last
those
week.
players that I only like think of QPR.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just see Harry Redknapp. Next player retired. Has played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clubs again, and it's Danny Mills.
Daniel first.
Stands first.
God.
A very outspoken.
Right, can we
pundit.
stop this?
Where would you like your P45?
Yeah, you can have it.
2.
Way past my bed.
Ooh, 2.
Yeah.
Is that tactical?
How many clubs was it?
7 again. Technically 8, but he's played for 1 twice.
Oh, I don't think I can. This is bad, but again, it's that one club syndrome.
Yeah.
Christ, you two are
Um,
awful.
I didn't know whether I misjudged the eras here, so.
No, you got my era about right. It's just my memory's the problem. I'll take a stab at 3.
Good, because I was bluffing. I only knew 1.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. Okay, Leeds.
Yeah.
Bradford.
No.
City was my 1.
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
of course it was. No, this is not going well. We were bang on it last week.
Only because he's there on LMA that I knew that as well.
So he started at Norwich City, then went to Charlton, then Leeds, Middlesbrough on loan, Manchester City, Hull City, back to Charlton, and finished up at Derby County.
2-1, Dan.
2-1.
Chris, you're up.
The less known brother that is Anton Ferdinand. And he's played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 clubs.
Really?
One is in as 9th, but he didn't make an
Mhm.
appearance, and I don't
Doesn't
think it's a
count.
professional team.
Okay.
It's my bid first, isn't it? I think. Is it me?
Yes, you.
Yeah.
If you get all of them, I'll be very impressed.
I think
the
he's
rate
still-
this evening's gone up.
Yeah.
He's still playing now, I think, isn't he?
He retired in 2019.
Okay.
apparently.
I will start the bidding off at 3.
Ooh, girl.
I can do 3. I don't know if I can do 4.
Come on, I've been Billy Big Balls tonight. It's your turn.
Right,
I mean, don't let them talk you into it.
Do it.
well, either way, I think he's confident with his 3. Although he's not been very good when he has. I'll let you do 3 and then I'll see. Yeah, you go 3.
Okay. West Ham.
Yep.
QPR.
Yeah.
Sunderland.
Yeah.
That's the only 3 I have.
So from
He's been playing a lot of lower league stuff.
so from
Yeah.
QPR he went to Bursaspor on loan. Then he went to Antalyaspor. Then the one I've never heard of is Police United randomly.
Police United.
He had 0 appearances.
0 appearances. And then he went to Reading, so that's a bit of a step up. And then down to Southend, and then finished at St Mirren.
Okay, Southend was was one I was thinking of. I thought.
Yeah, we've got
So,
4.
2-2.
2
Yeah.
All hinges on this.
Decider.
Ugh.
Dan Servin.
And this was my
Yeah.
favourite one. Saved him right to the end. He has played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9
Oh boy.
teams, and it is Pepe Reina.
Ooh. Oh.
Oh, this could be.
There is a 10th in there, but again, it's not a proper team. I know they play.
I don't know why you're counting on your fingers now.
Because I can't keep count of how many I've done otherwise.
Is that my only criticism that I count as I'm going? Rather
Well, no,
you
because
prep-
I do
you
double
prep
check.
better, do
I double check.
you? Okay.
Well, I don't know.
So who's going?
It's me, isn't it?
Yeah.
4.
He's put it in. He's put it in the
That's
slot
the
again.
sweet spot. That's the
Put it
sweet
in the
spot.
slot again. I don't think I can do 5. I think I could probably do 4.
He's still going as well. He's still playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 2-2, my record's not been great tonight, so I'm gonna have to let you do your 4.
Conceding.
So it's a 3 in my 4th socket. Yes.
Oh, okay, that's a good move.
Milan.
Yep.
Napoli.
Yep.
Liverpool.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he played for another Premier League team, but I'm trying to think of Spanish teams. Was he at Madrid? No.
Get in, Villa.
Wasn't, no.
Oh,
Aston
Villa.
Villa.
I knew there was another Premier League team.
So Barcelona B,
Barcelona.
Barcelona, Villarreal, Liverpool, Napoli, Bayern Munich, Milan, Villa, and he's now at Lazio.
Wow,
Went for the wrong Spanish team.
he did.
They're wrong for
So that's 2-2 then.
Mm.
God, it's getting spicy. This a
Yeah.
bit like my forfeit last year.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, Will, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
So just a reminder, Rugby Blindside.
Rugby Blindside, you can find us at www.rugbyblindside.com, at Rugby Blindside on all the socials, and Rugby Blindside podcast on all your podcast apps.
Excellent.
For anything about rugby off the pitch.
Excellent. Well, there's much more to discuss, I think, with the comparisons between the two sports. So we'll definitely have you back on at some stage. And I think this is probably a record for the longest podcast. So people can just do it in 2 stages. This could be a two-day podcast for everyone. But anyway, thank you very much for listening, everybody. We hope you enjoyed having a first guest of the season on the show, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.
See ya.